Good morning, everybody, from the Monday Morning Cooking Club kitchen in Sydney, Australia. I am Lisa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Natanya.
And we're really, really thrilled and excited to have so many of you here today. We have a few hundred people signed up for today's session, which is just wonderful. And I can see from the comments that we've got people from all over the world, even 11 p.m. in Manchester, UK. That's amazing. So hello to everybody in Melbourne, in Sydney, everywhere in Australia, USA, Canada, UK, and wherever else you are. Welcome to our kitchen. It is Monday morning here, which is very fitting that we're here on a Monday morning.
Where else would we be?
Exactly, Monday Morning Cooking Club. So we want to introduce you, to those of you who don't know, to our new book. Of course, you Aussies know because you've been using it since March. But for those of you abroad, you may not have seen it yet, or you may have just got your hands on it. It's called Now for Something Sweet. And we're pretty excited that it's available across the world now. All Amazons have it wherever you are in the world. Also Book Depository and, the big book chains online all have it.
This is poppy seed brioche on the front cover. We're not making it today. We'll have to do it one day because it is our cover cake and it is exquisite.
Yeah, it really is. There's lots of beautiful recipes in this book, which we'll talk about throughout the morning. So let's talk about the cake we're going to make today. The idea is that it is a cook along and that you will follow along with us step by step. So we will go slowly so that everyone can keep up. First thing, please put your ovens on to 170 degrees Celsius or 340 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on where you are. And
that's
no fan. Okay. So if you've got a fan frost oven,
just bring it down.
Just bring it down a bit. It's very humid today, isn't it? Are you feeling it?
Yes, in Sydney it is.
So we are approaching summer in Sydney. It's going to be summer on the 1st of December, and Sydney is particularly humid. And this time of the year, we've got flies and humidity, and I'm feeling it now.
But actually, this is a great cake. This is I would call this a summer slab cake.
It's
you can have it any time of year, but it goes quite nicely in warm weather as well as any weather.
The reason I brought up the humidity is because I'm starting to get a bit warm. I'm feeling, and I might just pop in quickly. You just chat.
All right.
All right. Air conditioning sort of a day, but let's talk about the
I just want to check. Yes, that's what I was going to check with everyone. That the one thing that you do need is that your butter needs to be soft. You're creaming it. So I hope it is out of the fridge and measured. And to know that it is soft, if you just dent it with your finger, it should make an indentation. That's how you want it.
So it's actually really important that it's soft. That's probably the most important thing. Okay, somebody's asked. It's on page 142 of the new book, and that's it there. Okay, so let's get started. We'll go through all the ingredients that we need today. Firstly, let's go to the dry ingredients.
Okay.
Go. We need...
you will have 1 3/4 cups or 150 grams of desiccated, unsweetened coconut. Now, desiccated coconut is the finely shredded one. Normal shredded coconut won't work well in this recipe, so you really want the desiccated.
So that's 150 grams or 5 1/3 ounces or 1 3/4 cup. We always prefer to weigh ingredients for a cake because then you know you've got it right.
Then you've got almond meal, and it's 3 1/2 cups of almond meal or 350 grams or 2 1/3.
No, 12 1/3. Can't read my writing. 12 1/3 ounces.
The almond meal that we've got here is blanched almond meal. But I suppose if you've got, you can just use the unblanched almond flour if that's what you've got. That's no problem.
And if you've just got almonds, you can also put them in the food processor and make your own. It's not probably going to be quite as fine as that, but I think that's a very good option.
If that's all you can do.
Okay.
And then actually, I'll just mix them together right now in a big bowl. You mix your coconut and your almond meal together, and into that, you are going to put 1 tablespoon of baking powder.
Now, I just want to talk about tablespoons here, particularly with this audience from Canada and the USA. In Australia, our tablespoons equal 4 teaspoons or 20 mils. A teaspoon is standard throughout the world, I'm happy to say, which is 5 mils in metric, but our tablespoons are 4 and American tablespoons are 3. So if you're in America and you've got a tablespoon, you'll need a tablespoon and a teaspoon of baking powder.
Yeah.
So Nattie's put the dry ingredients, the almond meal, the coconut, and the baking powder in a large bowl, and choose a large one, and she's mixing it with a whisk just to get it, to make sure it's combined.
That's right.
If you do it in a tiny bowl, it's going to end up all over the bench. We've all done that. The bigger, the better.
Yeah.
The coconut is unsweetened.
Yeah.
It is unsweetened coconut. Okay, so let's talk about the wet ingredients. We have got, as we said earlier, our butter, 175 grams. We're using unsalted butter, which is what we use for all our baking. If you just have salted butter, that's fine as well. This recipe doesn't have it. I mean, some people only have salted butter, so there's no option. So don't panic about it, but the preference is unsalted. This cake actually doesn't have any salt in the batter. It has a bit in the icing, so that's fine. Don't worry about that. So we're using unsalted butter.
Yeah.
We have 270 grams or 1 1/4 scant cups, which is like just under 1 1/4 cups, or 9.5 ounces of sugar. We use caster or superfine sugar for our baking, but if you're somewhere and you just have white sugar, it's absolutely fine. Okay, so
you
that
might
much
just
sugar.
Want to mix it for a little bit longer. It'll just take a little longer to break down.
You need 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. We use, I always smell it. It's just my habit. Do you do the same when I open the jar? This is a beautiful bourbon vanilla that has actually the seeds in it. It is an extract, not an essence. And this is our first choice for baking. Yeah. And 1 teaspoon of that. But if you've got vanilla extract, if you've got vanilla essence, that's fine too. We need 5 eggs. We use extra large eggs in this kitchen. So if you've got tiny, tiny eggs, add another one in. That's the wet ingredients, and that's it. Has everyone got the ingredients ready?
Maybe
let's talk about the tin.
Yeah.
Okay, go.
So we are using what's it called?
It's got a quarter sheet pan.
Yes. And I'll just take the paper off and show you.
So the people from the US will understand that because it's a term you use. In Australia, we really don't use it, although we were introduced to it about 2 years ago, and now we use it all the time.
And we love it. We love it so much that actually in our book, we have a whole chapter of slab cakes, which I'm going to show you now, that work for this size. So this is a great tin to have.
So this is in centimetres, 22 by 32 centimetres-ish, give or take. And it's fantastic. This is a Williams-Sonoma Gold Touch non-stick, which has become my favourite.
See, that's the chapter called Squares and Bars, and they all work with that tin, and it's just fabulous for feeding a crowd. I mean, we don't have that many crowds in these days at the moment, but even just for home, I love taking cake and cutting it into squares.
It's a really good sized cake actually. It seems to go further than a round cake for some reason. It's a bit flatter. Well. Yeah, it's great. So someone asked how many grams of flour. Well, it's almond meal, and it's 350 grams. So 350 grams of almond meal, 150 grams of coconut, and 1 tablespoon or 4 teaspoons of baking powder. That's the dry ingredients.
In case you didn't realise, this cake has no flour in it. It has almond meal, replacing flour. It's a gluten-free
which is a bonus.
Recipe.
And it was funny when we collect recipes. We collect recipes from ourselves, from our own families, from our own childhood, and as well we collect recipes from other people. And sometimes recipes come to us in the funniest ways. And this came to us. We were having lunch a few years ago in Bondi, working lunch. We always call it a working lunch, even when it's not. And we were at one of our favourite cafe restaurants in Bondi called Lock's Stock and Barrel. Yes. And the chef there is Neil Gottheimer. And we know Neil, and we were having this working lunch, and he sent over at the end a piece of cake for us to have, which was very nice. And we tasted the cake, and we all went, oh my goodness me, this cake is so good. We want recipe. Then we asked for the recipe, and it was only then that we realised that it was gluten-free. So it's one of those cakes that you wouldn't pick it as not that gluten-free cakes are bad, but sometimes there's you might pick it as one. This one is such a moist, delicious cake with the most amazing crumb that you just wouldn't pick it. Anyway, got the recipe and the rest is history.
I have to say, this book has been out since February.
Yeah.
And this cake, this particular cake, I think has been the most loved, most made cake in the book.
Yeah, I agree. And so someone asked, how deep is the tin? It's about 2.5 centimeters, 1 inch. Wouldn't you not say so?
I'm not good at measurements.
That's about what it is. You think less or more? Roundabout, more or less. I mean, you know, it's not a flat tray is the point, and it's not a deep tin. They're all this size. You'll find them. Quarter sheet pan, you'll see, looks like this.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, is the difference between the tablespoons talked about in the book? In the beginning of the book, we have a section called Kitchen Notes, which talks about all our measurements. It explains the Australian way of measuring. And the Americans, you just need to know that 1 tablespoon that you have in your kitchen is 3 of our teaspoons. Sorry, it's not 3. It's 3 of our teaspoons, not 4. That's all. So every time you see tablespoon in our book, you need to add a teaspoon.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's line this.
I just line it across. Do you do that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So we're going to spray it with some sort of spray. I'm just using a olive oil spray today. Sorry. But you don't have to. You can butter it, or you can put some oil on some paper towel and do it like that. But you know, we like to do shortcuts. And then this just goes across. And if the edges are out, it's actually fine. Sorry, the edges, the ends are not covered. It's fine. I've given them a bit of a spray, and that's it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's nice to have leave a little bit on the other side. Helps you pull out the cake at the end.
Okay, so that's our cake tin ready to go. Right. Somebody's asked about South African measurement. South African, I assume, is the same as America. I think Australia is the only country in the world with a 20 ml tablespoon. And even in the stores here, they still sell some 15 ml tablespoons. It's really interesting. I don't know why it's like that.
Check that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anyone with us from South Africa because at the time it's the middle of the night. But we will check that. But I imagine, for some reason, I think that Australia is the only country that has that tablespoon size. Okay. Right, ready to cook?
All right, so everyone needs, you can do it by hand with a wooden spoon. You can have a handheld electric mixer. You can have a stand mixer like we've got, and we've got the paddle that we're using today, or the K beater if you've got a Kenwood. And it's going to be noisy, but hopefully you'll all be beating at the same time, so we'll all have noise together.
So if you're ready, mix up your dry ingredients, the coconut, the almond meal, and the baking powder, and just give it a mix either with a whisker or a fork, just to have it all mixed in, and then set that aside. And then we'll move on to the wet ingredients.
Okay, so in here we are putting our butter, our sugar, you can put it all in together, and vanilla. And let's start it mixing.
Yeah, I like to mix it up a little bit and then add in the vanilla.
Yeah, I like to mix it up a bit too and then add in the vanilla, because otherwise you sometimes get a clump. Okay, South African tablespoon measures 15 mils. Thank you, Karen. Yeah.
Same for you.
So Australia is unique in that way, and a lot of Australians don't even know that.
Yeah, they will not.
Which is and maybe in cooking it doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
If you're cooking along with us, can I just do one more reminder to make sure your oven is on now at 170 degrees or 340 Fahrenheit.
Okay, so I'm just going to turn this up. Sorry about the noise. Can you still hear us talking over the noise? Just let me know if you can, and then we'll keep talking. And I can smell that lovely butter and sugar smell. It reminds me of, I mean, it takes me back to baking cakes with my mum, actually, that smell. Oh, good.
Nice.
Thanks, Laura.
Monday morning.
Laura says, okay. So are you happy for me to put in the vanilla now?
Yeah.
I never use a spoon to measure vanilla.
No, but I turn it off because I find, you know why? Because I find it gets caught on the beater going round and round.
Really?
Yeah.
Can we see? Can we do an experiment?
Yeah.
Okay, so beat. So everyone needs to beat your butter and your sugar together. And now we're going to eyeball 1 teaspoon of vanilla. The reason I don't measure it in a teaspoon measure is because you lose half of it in the teaspoon, and you've got to try really hard to get it out. So it's just as easy to do that.
And a little bit extra won't hurt.
So we're just creaming it until it is pale and fluffy, I guess. Yeah. Pale and creamy.
You can see, you want the sugar to break down
It's not going to break down completely. You'll still be able to feel it. You have to beat it for a long time for it to completely dissolve, but you are starting to break it down. 170 degrees is not fan forced. So if you've got a fan forced oven, turn it down a bit to 155, something like that. Okay. So this is the cake that Nigella Lawson wrote about when she first got this book, and she posted it on Instagram. You go back to her Instagram from June, I think it was June. She posted this cake as the #1 cake that she wanted to make from the book, and she posted the recipe on her website. So we're pretty excited about that, I must say. So like Nigella's given it the thumbs up, and I would say that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people across Australia who have made this cake many times. We see it on Instagram all the time, because once you make it, you'll realise this is a winner.
And so many people stop me and say, tell me that this is their favourite cake from the book. It's just, and every time I go to someone's afternoon tea or morning tea, you always see it on the table.
Okay, I'm just going to scrape it down. Always need to do that with these mixers. I don't think there's any that don't.
Always good just
make it creep up the side.
And get right underneath, so you want it all mixed in beautifully.
And also off the beater. And it's getting pale, it's looking lovely. I can still feel the sugar in it. But as I said, it's going to be very hard to get it completely smooth, and you don't need to worry about it. So let's just keep going for another minute. And Sandra's made the cake, and she says it's outstanding. Thank you. Yeah, we have to talk about passion fruit, actually. We will. When we talk about the icing, we'll talk about that.
But I did want to say, I find this cake, I get a much better result if all my ingredients are at room temperature to start with. I know it's first thing in the morning in Australia, so hopefully your eggs came out of the fridge early, because it just mixes better. Everything works much better if your eggs are not cold.
I actually always have a dozen eggs out of the fridge. I keep, like I might have 3 dozen eggs at a time, because I do lots of cooking and baking, and I'll have 2 dozen in the fridge, and I'll just have 1 dozen always on my kitchen bench. My kitchen never gets really, really super hot. Obviously, if it's 40 degrees and 90% humidity, I'll rethink that. But I find that it works to always have some butter out and some eggs out, so that I can bake.
Yeah, I agree.
And these have been out for a couple of days, actually. Okay, so how's everyone's butter going? Hopefully everyone's butter is ready. This is lovely and creamy, and I think we're good to go. Someone just asked, you don't like that there? Sorry. Don't like my blue chunks. All right, so someone's got a question. I can't eat coconut, any substitute? Look, I would say we've got so many beautiful other cakes that I would rather make if you can't eat coconut. It's really the second, the main ingredient in it.
We did talk about it a lot. You could, I mean, if you really wanted to, I suppose you could mix 2 different nuts together, like almond meal maybe. And
then it's a different cake.
And then it is a completely different cake.
Because what the coconut does is that it gives this the moisture and changes the crumb, and nothing else would do that. So I think choose another cake. We've got beautiful, orange cake, lots of things. Okay, so let's go. We're going to add the eggs in one at a time. We're going to crack one into a glass and then put it in. Some people say that it's better if you beat it lightly in the glass before you add it in. It sort of might stop it from splitting a bit. The mixture might split a bit in this, but don't worry about it. So we're going to just, and I always, maybe unlike you, keep my beater going.
Oh, I do.
And just chuck it in one at a time.
Yes.
So
I find,
1 egg in.
I actually find everything being at the same temperature helps a lot with it creaming nicely.
Okay, so put your first egg in. Always go into a glass first, because if your egg is rotten, which sometimes happens, you're going to ruin the whole cake. So always good to see first.
Ready?
Yep. So I'm just adding the next one as soon as it's combined. Oh, how funny. So Jennifer says, just discovered my cousin Laura from Oregon is watching, and she's in Sydney. See, Monday Morning Cooking Club brings people together all over the world. It's beautiful. Okay. Yep. So again, egg number 3. Hope you're all following along. Let us know how you're going.
if you're just a beginner baker or not very confident, this is a good cake to practice on, because you can't really go wrong.
The only issue that people have had with it, a couple of issues, which I'll tell you about. One is the baking time, and people have had it sink in the middle, which is just about getting the oven temperature of your oven right, because every oven is different, and this is a very specific temperature for this cake. Okay, so Kelly's already put her cake in the oven. You're way ahead of us. If you only have shredded coconut, yes, absolutely, put it in the food processor and blitz it.
Great idea.
Okay, here we go.
I actually usually do one scrape down here. So you could put all 5 in and then do a scrape down.
It's a smooth batter, and it's split, the tiniest bit. The tiniest bit of a curdle there, but I'm not worried about that. And the last egg is in.
As soon as you add in your dry ingredients, it goes.
So that's it. Last egg's in, and that's it. So that's all the wet ingredients in there together. You can stop the beater now for the moment. All right. Now, you can add the dry ingredients. If you're making a cake with flour, sometimes we suggest that you don't do it in the machine, because overworking the flour makes the gluten, overworks the gluten, and it makes it tough. But there's no gluten in any of this, so you're really quite free to use the machine, and nothing's going to happen to it. Forgot this. Okay.
Secret ingredient. I don't know if you know this, but I am a lover of orange zest, lemon zest, lime zest in most cakes that I make. Maybe not a chocolate cake, but most other cakes. And I have found that in this cake, the coconut and the almond milk, a zest of lime goes beautifully. So I'm going to just, if you've got one handy, go and grab it, and I'm going to zest in.
Now today, because we realise that a lot of people in the United States, I don't know about Canada, have trouble getting passion fruit, which is such a foreign concept to us because they're so plentiful here. And we'll talk about we can talk about it now. So
also they're going into winter there, and it's definitely a summer fruit.
But we are doing an alternate icing today. We're going to do a lime icing instead of a passion fruit icing. And that's why the lime zest is particularly good, because it goes very well with the lime icing. Yes, you can buy frozen passion fruit. Oh, yes, you can buy frozen passion fruit in Coles. That's right. So thanks, Julie, for that. So let's talk about passion fruit. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, and it's funny because it's something that's such a big part of our life here, is the passion fruit called something else. What's it called? So someone tell me the other name. That would be great. This is a passion fruit. It is sweet but tart. My mouth's watering just smelling it. It's a grenadilla. Thanks, Michelle. It's called a grenadilla as well. So this is a passion fruit in Australia, and they're very plentiful, and it's so good to put it in an icing. People have had trouble with the icing because they haven't been weighing the passion fruit. Like, you need to weigh it. It's very specific. But if you don't have scales and you don't want to weigh it, just add a bit at a time. Don't just put 2 passion fruit into the icing and hope that it works. Like, start with 1 and mix it and see if it needs more. I mean, that's the thing with an icing. We'll talk about more when we get to the icing. Okay, so let's get back to the cake. All right.
So we've got our almond milk, coconut, baking powder, and now lime zest. And it's going in to...
Let's put half first.
Yeah, I always do it in 2, just so you don't get it flying up all over your face.
Which we've all had happen many times.
Let's mix that in.
And you can do this by hand. You don't need to do it with the machine, but since we've got the machine here, we might as well.
Just smell.
It's a beautiful cake.
So summery, so tropical.
Perfect for you guys who are approaching winter. But give you a taste of Australia.
Yeah,
have a beautiful zesty cake. All right, and the last bit.
Oh, sorry.
All right, just chuck it in. Go. You can see how easy it is. I mean, obviously we're taking our time now because we're chatting and you're all here with us, but it's a 5-minute cake. If you add passion fruit, if you're using passion fruit icing, would you add the lime zest?
Absolutely.
Or would you add lemon zest because you've got lemon juice in the icing as well?
No, I love smell. It goes so beautifully with the passion fruit, with the coconut. It's all the same story. Beautiful.
Okay, so That's it. Cake's done. Yep. So that's the cake. Remember, it's not a smooth batter because you've got bits of almond and coconut. So it is a bitsy batter, and it's quite a thick, sticky batter actually. All right. So if you weren't here, I would definitely be licking this.
So would I.
But I'm going to put it away. We'll have it later. All right.
And then just.
Do you want to do that?
In. Yeah.
Just pile it in. Keep that because we'll do the icing in that as well. So it's just a matter of piling it in here. And then we're going to bake it for 28 minutes at 170 degrees at that temperature, 170 or 340. And then turn it down to 160. Is that right? Have I got that right? Let me just check that.
I have to tell you a little confession, Lisa.
You just leave it at 170?
I do.
Yeah.
It's 32 minutes altogether, is that right?
So he says, yeah, it is. It's 32 minutes.
I just leave it at 170 for 30 minutes.
Sorry, actually, no. Yes, you do. So you do. You're supposed to reduce it to 160 and cook it for another 4 minutes. I actually do reduce it, but mine takes about an extra 10 minutes, not 4 minutes.
So that's why, and we'll show you what it looks like when it comes out. I just gave up. I found it fussy, and I just one day decided, you know what? I'm just going to leave it at 170 for 30 minutes, and it was perfect.
Yeah. So if you don't want to turn it down, don't. But if you do, and follow the recipe exactly, then by all means do. I turn it down, as I said. So I do 28 minutes at 170, and then I turn it down to 160 for an extra. Check it at 4 minutes, but it might need a bit longer. And what you want to do is, I find this, because this is such a moist cake, the skewer test might be a bit difficult. And I find a really good way is to gently put your hand on top of the cake. Firstly, check if there's a wobble. If there's a wobble, it's not ready. Once the wobble's gone, gently place your hand like you're just feeling the top of it. And if you can feel it, if it's cooked or not. It needs to be firmish under your hand.
And the only place where you really need to do that check is right in the middle. The edges will definitely be done.
Yeah.
It's just right in the middle, and it may need an extra minute or two, but depending on your oven.
Now, if you've got an offset palette knife, it's probably easier than the...
Although it doesn't really matter because it just all melts down in the oven.
Okay.
I always find it impossible to get the last little bits off the spatula and get it smooth, but I think that's fine.
Okay, so that's it. So that's the cake, and just to give it a little bit of a bang on the bench,
Fine, it's very thick.
And
so that's it. Now going in the oven.
Yep.
And we'll see it in half an hour.
But we're not. We've got one we made before. So don't worry. You don't have to sit there for half an hour waiting for the cake. And all of you whose cake is in the oven, I'm sorry we're not going to be able to ice yours. You're not going to be able to ice yours with us, but we're going to ice the one we've made earlier. It's really important that the cake is absolutely 100% at room temperature before you ice it. Don't think, oh, it's okay. It's just a little bit warm. Really, really not a good idea, because icing melts in a second and it's not a good look. You'll just get just not a good thing. Okay, so somebody has said, oh, Matthew, that it's similar to basbousa. Yeah, you with semolina. It is actually. So he says basbousa can contain semolina, almond flour, and coconut, depending on the traditions of the country. The proportions vary, etc. Some recipes even use yogurt. And of course, basbousa has a simple syrup soak rather than an icing, but the cakes are very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. He prefers a lighter basbousa, which is almost identical to this cake base. Yeah. And he says he loves the icing, which is very different to a syrup cake. We actually have a basbousa in our second book, The Feast Goes On, a beautiful one, which is, the texture is quite similar. You're absolutely right. But this one has just got a different, because of the icing, it's completely different. But thank you. That's a great thing, Matthew.
And it's a lovely icing, a lovely butter.
Okay, so Georgina says 5 extra large eggs sounds like a lot.
It is.
It is a lot.
It
is a lot. And that's what makes this cake exceptional. It's a different cake. It's got a lot of eggs. It's got a lot of baking powder. People write to us all the time and say, really? 1 tablespoon?
Yes. Yeah.
True story. So, okay, this is the cake. How beautiful.
Yeah.
That's it. Same tin. Edges to lift it. I ice it in the tin sometimes. If you want to serve it on a big board, you can take it out now, put it on the board and ice it on the board. Yeah. Or you can ice it in the tin. It's up to you. But what I am going to do...
You could also just put it on a cooling rack with a tray underneath to catch any drips of icing that might dry.
So let's just cut the edges out. Can we do that?
Or just the two ends.
I'm just going to gently
I did butter it.
Just move it away from the edge before. Well, we're not going to pull it out now, but this is the way we do it. Is just go to the ends and just do that with the knife. I'm not going to do it now because we're going to ice it in the tin. Yeah. But just make sure where you have it papered that it's not stuck. Because when you pull it out, you don't want bits to get stuck. Yeah. Let's talk icing.
Okay. Should I just
No. Okay. So icing ingredients. Now, this is a huge quantity of icing for this cake, and I have on occasions said it's actually too much icing for me this week, so I just go 2/3 and go 2/3 of 500 grams, and I 2/3 everything. But you can do whatever you like. So yeah, tell them about that.
It's 15 grams or half an ounce of butter melted. So I'm just going to duck over here and melt it.
Yeah, put it in the microwave. Yes, I did say 1 tablespoon of baking powder in the dry ingredients, which is 4 teaspoons of baking powder. Okay, let's talk icing. So the original icing ingredients are 500 grams, which is 1 pound and 2 ounces of icing sugar. You can use either pure icing sugar or icing sugar mixture. Either one work well. United States, Canada, I think you call it confectioner's sugar. It's the fine powdered sugar that we're looking for here. The sugar that you use for icing. Then we've got 15 grams or 3 teaspoons or half an ounce of unsalted butter melted. 2.5 tablespoons of lemon juice, which is 4, 8, 10 teaspoons of lemon juice.
Do you want me to squeeze?
Yeah. And that's something that, yeah. So you need to juice some lemons, 2.5 tablespoons, and 40 grams of passionfruit pulp, which is about 1 to 2 tablespoons. But because we're doing lime today, we're going to add some lime juice, and we're going to measure as we go. We're going to juice and zest some limes. Do you want zest in the icing?
I don't usually, because I don't like seeing the little bits. Yeah. I actually prefer it smooth.
Okay, so we're not putting the zest in the icing, but it's up to you. Okay, so freshly juiced lemons would be great.
What do we need? Tablespoon measures. Yeah.
Okay, so in here, I mean, the recipe is quite particular about the order of making this icing, but to be honest, you can just put everything in together. Just hold back some of the liquid, as I said.
Not the lemon juice, the
passion fruit.
Passion fruit or lime.
Because once you put it all in and it's too liquid, you've got to start adding more icing sugar, and then you're going to have way more icing than you want. Yeah. So it's much better to actually do it slowly. So let's start.
This does make it quite, as Lisa said, quite a thick layer of icing. And if you didn't want it to be so thick, as she said, just cut it down.
Okay, so just put the icing sugar in a bowl. You could use any attachment for this. The whisk would work, or the cake beater. I should
mention that if you are, we use icing mixture.
Oh, I did talk about that.
You did?
Yeah. Between using icing sugar, pure icing sugar, and icing sugar mixture is the icing sugar mixture has an additive, usually corn flour, just to stop it from clumping together, and it means you don't have to sift it like you do with pure icing sugar. Yeah. So it is a shortcut. And the difference in result is that if you use pure icing sugar, if you want an icing to be set and have that real icing look, they say that pure icing sugar is better for that. But to be honest, I use the mixture all the time and I've never had a problem. So it's really, I think, whatever you've got. We're going to use the paddle. Do you want the paddle or the whisk for this?
I always use the paddle.
Okay. So I'm going to put in the icing sugar in the mixture, in the mixer.
Oops, sorry.
And the butter.
Look at this fabulous contraption. I'm going to juice my limes with it.
Other way. I know. I used to think it was that way, but it's actually, no, it's actually that way because you're using that to push out.
And I'm going to straight into
yeah. Okay. So And we're going to do 2.5 tablespoons of lemon juice.
This is great.
So 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons.
You know, I've got one of these at home and I have never used it.
And a half. 2.5 Australian tablespoons of lemon juice. 10 teaspoons for those of you in other places. And we're just going to beat it. Start slowly because because it does come up. Don't go high speed straight away or you'll be covered with icing sugar. And that'll come together nicely and it'll be an icing. And you really can't overwork this. There's nothing in it.
If there's anyone out there that makes chiffon cakes, this is a lovely icing to use on a plain chiffon as well.
Yeah,
really lovely.
So, yeah, a great idea from Matthew actually is to use all the icing is to split the cake in half and ice half and put the other one on top and then ice it on top. I think that's what your tip is. Yeah, that's great. People do freak out about the amount of sugar in this cake. 500 grams of icing is a lot for one cake, but it's really delicious.
Yeah.
All right, so it's sort of like a lumpy icing at the moment.
Yeah.
It's obviously not ready because it doesn't have its passion fruit or its lime, but it's all combined really nicely. And I think that's what I want to show you. People have had issue with the icing and I'm just not sure why, because it's really, if you follow the recipe and add things, add the liquid carefully at the end, then you won't have any problem. Okay.
Do you want to measure how much?
I think we should add in. I think we should.
So this is lime juice going in.
Oh, we're measuring. Yeah. So stop at 1 tablespoon. Okay. It's definitely going to need 1 tablespoon. So let's start with that. Okay, so that's 1 tablespoon of lime juice and it's starting to come away from the edges inside. It's starting to form an icing. And remember with icing, once you add, as I said before, it's easier to keep adding than to take out. I'm just going to scrape down. And I just want to show you, it's still too thick.
Yeah.
It's not far off though. It's not far off though. I'd rather a thicker icing than a thinner icing because thin icing just pulls off the edges. Did we microwave our limes first? Said Lynn. No, but that's a good thing to warm it to get them more juicy.
Oh, I didn't know.
Is that what you're suggesting? I think so. That's a very good idea. Okay, let's go again. I think let's put in another teaspoon now. We'll do that. So I've got now, this is our 5th teaspoon of lime juice. And it doesn't need much to go from a thick paste that you saw to the right consistency. And now you can just beat it like this.
It needs a really good beat. And maybe that's where people go wrong. They don't, I let it go for about a good 3 to 5 minutes once I've got everything in it to really get it creamy.
I think we go 1 more teaspoon. I'll show you the texture of it.
I think we need to let it beat for a while. Okay. We can add a little bit more.
Okay, put in another teaspoon of lime juice. Okay, so that's it. So we've now got 6 teaspoons of lime juice in total.
And we're going to just let it.
I'm just going to beat it for a minute. What is the difference between almond meal and almond flour? That's a good question.
There isn't a difference. It's just a different name. Sometimes almond meal and almond flour are
interchangeable.
They just use different that term or that term for it. But basically, it is ground almond.
I think that almond. I wonder if almond flour. I mean, when we first wrote this book. Previously in other books, we thought there was a difference between ground almonds and almond meal because almond meal tends to be a bit finer. But I think ground almonds and almond meal are fully interchangeable. I just wonder if almond flour is sometimes a bit finer, if it's milled even finer.
Well, it's ground, but it's finely ground almond, which is so is almond meal. I think there isn't a difference. There's nothing added to almond flour. That is not in almond meal.
But I think as Sandra said, I do think that almond flour as opposed to almond meal or ground almonds, is milled finer, and it has a different texture. Okay, so I think this is, you could go another half a teaspoon, but what do you think? Yeah, another teaspoon, and then we're done. Okay, so that's it. And there's our icing, and I'll show you what I said in one sec. That's a very mean teaspoon.
I know, because I'm a little reluctant.
And we're just going to give it a beat. Do you remember we had 40 grams of passion fruit, which is about one and a half passion fruit. The passion fruit icing is beautiful. So if you can find passion fruit in a can, frozen passion fruit, try it with that. But just add it a little bit at a time, because some of them are more liquidy than others. Okay, so you should just keep beating yours until it is absolutely smooth and perfect. And it is a matter, because the original recipe is not with lime juice, of just adding a bit more and making sure that you're, I know, I just want to see how it spreads. Do you want to have a look?
I'll just grab a palette knife.
So you could actually keep beating that. I would probably put in a tiny bit more juice, to be honest. But you do want it quite thick, okay?
Yeah, there's only a tiny bit left. You might as well just add it.
Okay. So how many are we up to? Teaspoons?
Well, that wasn't a whole teaspoon.
We're probably just under 2 tablespoons.
It was actually one lime that size.
If somebody's asked, did we sift the almond meal? No. You mix together the almond meal, the coconut, and the baking powder in a bowl, and we whisked it together to combine.
So I wonder, while Lisa's beating that, if anyone noticed that we are wearing something a little different today. These are our new Monday Morning Cooking Club aprons, and you guys are the very first to see them, and we are in love with them. We had them made especially. They have, as you can see, beautiful strap on the neck. The material is pure organic cotton, I believe, and it has a little bit of stretch in it, which is really lovely.
We'll talk about, let's continue talking about the apron. It is, okay, so it only comes in one colour. It has this beautiful cream tape.
Cool.
It has a, as Natty said, the material's stretchy. It has a really generous tie around the waist. Natty has the petite, we have 2 sizes, petite and regular. She's petite and I'm regular. It is very generous though, and very comfy. It has a room for your pen.
Oh yes.
It has a pocket for your glasses.
Which I do.
And in the side here, there's a pocket for your phone. Yeah. And we love it. And we're selling them, it's for Australian people only, I'm sorry. And we've only ordered 25 this year, and we're selling them for Christmas presents or end of year festive season presents with book packages, which is going to be on our website from next week. So look out for that. All right, back to the icing. Okay, did you need to sift the icing sugar? Because I used icing mixture, I did not, but if you're using pure icing sugar, you need to.
Definitely do.
Okay, are we ready to do this?
Yeah, let's go. This is a great tool to have whenever you're icing anything. This is the large offset palette knife. You can also get they come in all different sizes. Yeah. I just grabbed this one out of the drawer because that's the first one that I saw.
Okay, so I've just plonked all the icing on top and leave it to Natty to do the hard work. Okay, so what was the question there? Let's have a look. Almond flour is usually from branched almonds, but ground is a little finer. And almond meal usually has the skin on and a little coarser.
Sorry.
You've got to be careful.
Yeah, I wasn't careful.
To not get the crumb of the cake. Normally it doesn't do that. So
sorry.
It doesn't matter because it's a beautiful rustic cake anyway.
I actually thought it might be nice to decorate, even though I don't like zest in the thing. I thought you could just around the edges do a little bit of zest to decorate. It look lovely, but mine is now a spotty icing, not a beautiful
so just be careful because the crumb does come up, the top comes up if you don't take care when you're icing, that's all. And then you get a crummy a crummy icing like we've got, but that's all right. You can also dip your knife into hot water, which is going to help spread it and make it a much easier job. But it's not a hard icing to do. So that's the icing. It doesn't seem like a huge amount today, does it?
No, usually there's so much.
Okay, so that's the icing. All right.
And that's the cake.
And that's the cake. And I feel like we should cut a piece actually to have a look. I think it's really important. I'm just going to pop this down here.
I've done a terrible job of icing it today. I apologise.
So this cake, maybe we will pop it out of the tin. So you can see it's a beautiful rustic cake. It feeds a crowd. I would cut that into, you know, think about it, you know, 6 along there and 3 or 4 along there. It feeds a lot of people. It makes a very generous cake. And as well as that, it keeps for a few days. I don't keep it in the fridge. It doesn't need to be kept in the fridge. There's no dairy in the icing. Oh, there's butter, but that's okay. I would keep it for a day or 2 on the bench, and any longer you'd probably pop it in the fridge. But I think it's a very... Okay.
I'll stop there.
Yeah, that's fine. So shall we try to just... I'm going to do this now.
Would you like a board?
Yes, please. Because it's a non-stick tin, I am being very careful not to cut the tin as I do this. Okay, and then we're going to pull it out and we're going to eat it. Okay. So Harriet, you did not miss the addition of the passion fruit. We made it with lime juice today instead of passion fruit. But normally you would put the passion fruit in and you would see the seeds. That's part of the thing. We made it with lime today because we know that a lot of people in the USA and Canada can't get their hands on passion fruit. So do you want to take that end and I'll take this end? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. You can see it's super easy. And now we need to cut it. It just has the most wonderful, wonderful texture. And I promise you that once you start making this cake, you will make it all the time. Beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Do you want to eat it? Too early. Very early here for cake, is it? Do you think it's too early to eat cake at 10 to 11? No, I don't
like
think so.
Eating cake for breakfast, so I'll grab a plate.
Okay, so somebody asked, would you do this in a bundt tin? I don't know how it would come out of a bundt tin.
I think you'd have trouble.
Yeah, I think it's a very, it has a very loose crumb in a sense that works well for a slab cake, and I'm not sure in a bundt it's going to translate. You can
because you can't line the bundt, I think you would have trouble with it sticking. Even if you buttered and floured it really well, it's not the cake that I would do in a bundt tin.
Yeah, okay. So Esther wants us to take it off the paper. Okay, so if we were going to take it off the paper, I serve all my cakes on paper actually. But if you want to take it off, you've got to do it before. It's much easier before you ice it. Definitely. Then I would put a tray on top, flip it upside down, peel the paper off, put it back onto the tray you want. That's how I take it off. Now it's a bit hard because it's got the icing on it. Can it be made Parav dairy-free using Nuttalex instead? Absolutely. So if you want to make this cake dairy-free, you could use Nuttalex margarine.
I love it. I love it with the lime. It's just so fresh and summery. Has a zing to it. Beautiful. Beautiful.
It's such a good,
it's a great cake.
It's a really beautiful cake. The icing is delicious. I do love passion fruit though, so please do try to find some passion fruit if you can. And instead of adding the lime juice like we did, just add the passion fruit pulp, and that's it, and beat it again. Absolutely, Tanya, use tinned passion fruit, frozen passion fruit which have been defrosted. Any way you can get your hands on passion fruit. Just be careful when you're using tinned passion fruit. It's probably more liquidy than a random passion fruit off a vine. So just add a bit less and add a bit at a time rather than putting it all in. Amazon in the USA has passion fruit. There you go. Lauren, thank you for letting us know. So everybody can find it in the USA if you want. I find it such a strange thing that it's a fruit that you don't get even in summer. Surely they must grow passion fruit in Florida. Matthew, do they grow them in Florida? Isn't Florida a little bit tropical? I would love to hear why you don't have passion fruit and why it's not a thing. we've grown up with them and they're such a part of our life.
Yeah.
Passion fruit life. Okay, so that is the Goya Products sells frozen passion fruit as well. Yes, this can be made in a cake tin, Natalie asks. It can be made in a 26 centimetre spring form. Is it 26? Yes. Is that what we said? Yeah. It'll be a little bit higher. You need to cook it for a little bit longer. And Emma says you can get them in Brazil. Yeah. So Tanya from Melbourne grew up on this soft drink called Passiona, which is passion soda.
It's a 23 centimetre or a 9-inch round spring form tin.
Yep.
And you cook it for 30 minutes at 170 and then turn it down to 160 for 15 minutes.
Another 15, so it cooks for longer. Yeah. And even in wintry UK, they can get fresh passion fruit. So people in the United States, you need to go to your fruit sellers who import fruit or your fruit growers and say, we want passion fruit. We don't want to miss out anymore. Okay, so the passion fruit in the US is very sour in the Northeast. Interesting, yeah.
But remember, we made it with lime and it works beautifully. You've got a lot of icing sugar in there. So a sour passion fruit would still work fine.
I think I'd like a bit of lime zest on the top now.
Yeah,
can we just do a little bit? I think particularly because we've got the crumb in the icing, I think it would look really nice now to have a bit of passion fruit zest. So
lime zest.
Lime zest, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to have the green.
Yeah, that looks great. Rather than having it through the icing.
Yeah.
Diane says, would we consider changing our minds and making more aprons for other countries? Yes, we will. These are made through a company called Cream Collection, who make beautiful aprons. I've got icing on my t-shirt. And if these sell well this year in Australia, this is like a little test run, then we will, because they do ship overseas. So I think that would be possible. But we want to see what you think of the aprons. Do you like them? Would you buy one? They're going to retail for, I think, $70 or $75 in Australia, because it's a very, very high quality apron made in Australia, organic cotton, all the things you need, and of course our logo. Okay, so thank you all for joining us. I just want to remind everyone that our book is available from Amazon all over the world, USA, UK, Canada, or your local bookseller may have it. If you do get your hands on the book or you do make this cake, please send us a photo on Instagram and tag us.
We'd love it.
Please do it on Facebook, and if you don't have any of those, then just